All right. Well, hey there, and welcome to Conversations, where today we have Mark Dreistadt. And he is defined by both his passion and his remarkable talent to help leaders maximize the potential of their organizations. As one of America's leading experts in branding, marketing, fundraising, and communication, Mark's reputation for creating successful strategies is both well known and remarkable. With his deep passion for Israel, he spearheaded a program for the state of Israel that resulted in record-breaking tourism. Mark provides fresh insights to challenging problems, bringing a blend of creativity and strategic thinking to every organization he serves. Welcome to the show, Mark. How are you today?
I'm wonderful, and it's great to be with you. Thank you for the invitation to share this time together.
Absolutely. Where in the world are you coming to us from today?
Today, I'm coming to you from Pittsburgh. That's where our base is located, where my home is located, and we serve the entire world out of our offices in Pittsburgh.
Wonderful. And do you have some changing of the seasons there?
Oh, it's beautiful.
I
This is
imagine.
particularly beautiful. Sometimes the fall goes very quickly. You know, it turns cold and then it rains and the leaves disappear very quickly. This year, it's a absolutely stunning year for colors, and this is the year of foliage here in Pittsburgh.
That's wonderful. I know my daughter sent me a picture of two of my grandsons today before they were, going to school. And the background, they're in upstate New York. The background was just gorgeous. It was all yellow. It was
Mhm.
wonderful. I'm like, oh, I do love fall. We don't get much of it here in Florida.
I don't imagine.
No. But so glad you are here today. We're going to be talking about infinity concepts. We're going to be talking about a little bit more about what you do, but can you share with us what your role is?
I'm the founder and CEO of Infinity Concepts. We started this back in 2002, and the reasoning behind Infinity Concepts was that we would start a brand communications agency. That was something new at the time. In 2002, in the Christian space, which is where we primarily operate, everything was siloed. There were PR agencies and media agencies and advertising agencies and branding agencies, and that was all separate agencies. And my thought was, let's bring this together, because if the brand is developed correctly, and if you have the right kind of understanding about what we call brand essence, then that brand essence can feed the fundraising, it can feed the marketing, it can feed the public relations, social media. All of those different channels can be fed through a properly expressed brand essence. And so we created a new company, Infinity Concepts, that was a brand communications agency that brought all these disciplines together under one roof intentionally, so that the message could be consistent across all platforms.
Yeah. Now, can you identify for us what brand essence means to you?
Yes, brand essence is, brand means different things to
Mhm.
different people. So a lot of people think of brand is the logo or the color scheme or the palette or the fonts. To us, that's just an expression of a brand that exists. A brand is a collection of experiences people have with an organization. I'll say that again. A brand is a collection of experiences people have with an organization. And the brand essence is the definition of the experience that we want people to have with the organization. So by clarifying the brand essence, defining what that set of experiences should be like, what you provide to them, what their takeaway should be, it gives you guidance into how you need to communicate and how you need to make internal and external decisions. It guides all of that. Once you understand that you're building an experience base, and then you guide that set of experiences through the brand essence.
And that's beautiful. That's very elegant. It sounds elegant. Brand essence. I have never heard that before, actually, but it makes total sense to me. That
And
experience.
we break it down into different components. So your brand services is one piece of that. What are the things that you do? What do you offer? That's very practical. We have brand personality, because you can have the same set of services with a company that has a different personality, it's a whole different experience. So we have brand essence is defined by brand services, brand personality. We have distinctives. Every brand has a set of distinctives, something that makes you different and unique from anybody else in your field, that sets you apart. And then we do something that we call the brand benefits. It's not anything that you do, but it's what people take away. What do they experience? What's the impact of the services, personality, and distinctives? What in people's lives? And then we put all that together, and then we turn that into a brand promise. And those 5 components together make up the brand essence expression. Out of that, then you come up with, okay, so how do we communicate that? What's the right color palette? What's the right font? What's the right logo? All of that flows out of that, but you define the brand essence first.
It's beautiful. Thank you for going a little bit deeper into that.
Oh, no problem.
I think that's important for people to understand, because branding and
It's a
marketing
radical concept.
It can be a tricky space for sure.
I think when you develop an understanding that a brand is not something that you just design, but it's rather a set of experiences over time. It's anchors you're building into people's emotions and thoughts and experiences. That's what builds a brand. And so every organization is building a brand every day. And if you don't guide that experience, then you don't know necessarily what people's brands might be. They may have, what do they think of when they think of you? And oftentimes I use an example of coffee. I'm a coffee drinker. I have my coffee cup right here. And so I'm a coffee drinker, and I have been since I was a kid. Okay, there we go. And I like coffee in all kinds of coffee. I like espresso. I like lattes. I like Turkish coffee. I like Italian coffee. I like coffee. I just do. But if I had a cup and I put some coffee in it, and then I put a little tea with it, and then I put some Pepsi with it, and then I put some 7-Up with it, then I put some iced tea with it, then I put some lemon juice with it, and I put some orange juice with it, what do I have? Do I still have coffee? No, it's this crazy mess of different flavors that you're not quite sure even what it tastes like. Well, when you don't define your brand essence correctly, that's the experience people have with the organization. They taste one time, say, oh, it's coffee. I like coffee. And the next time it tastes like Pepsi, and say, wait a minute, how come that's different? And next time it tastes like orange juice. And they say, wait a minute, that's not what I thought this was. And so you have brand confusion. But by creating a brand essence that is clear, concise, memorable, you begin to define that consistent experience. So it's coffee, 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 coffee. And the great part about that is not everybody's going to like coffee, but that's okay. My wife does not like coffee. She barely tolerates the smell of coffee because I love it. And that's okay. We know she likes tea. I like coffee. So that's a choice that can be made. So when an organization is consistent, people can choose. I love that organization, or I don't love that organization. But when it's a conflated mixture of flavors and experiences, people just kind of shun. Would you taste the concoction I put in my cup? Of course not.
No,
so people just say, I'm keeping, I'm hands off. And so oftentimes people have great organizations and they're doing wonderful things, but because the brand experience is so confused, they never have the growth or the impact that they could have.
Yeah.
That's why we believe our work is so important.
It is important. And I love that it's a collaborative, like that one-stop shop type of organization, which is
and we've in the beginning when we did that, we were sort of accused of being a mile wide and an inch deep, but we really aren't. We brought experts in each of these areas into our team, and so we may be a mile wide, but we're a mile deep as well.
One of those areas is research.
Yes,
and I would love to talk a little bit about that and how that fits in to the work that you do.
Well, one of the things that we do is we have a saying around here that we say that we are helping our clients effectively communicate with an ever-changing culture. That's one of our principles, to help our clients effectively communicate with an ever-changing culture. And so if that's the case, then we have to understand the culture that we're trying to communicate to. Most of our work is communicating to the Christian community. We represent ministries, nonprofits, businesses, corporations, and even governments. But they're trying to communicate to the Christian marketplace. That's what our niche is. And so if we're going to do our job well, we have to understand the evolving Christian marketplace. And it does evolve, and it is evolving. And so about 3 years ago, we started a series of research projects that has resulted in us coming up with new research reports. This year, we've had extra reports. About every other month, we're coming up with a new one. Typically, it's about quarterly. We would release a research report on a topic, and we try to find things nobody has thought to ask yet, or have asked things in different ways than everyone has asked. So we've had reports on, what about evangelicals in public policy? How what are evangelicals doing? How do they feel? Because if you listen to the news, it would seem like evangelicals, a monolithic group that is, conservative white Republican. But that's not the case at all. Racially, there's a mix. There are liberals, moderates, and conservatives within the evangelical ranks, and their views on public policy are very different. So we researched that, provided that. What do evangelicals think about Israel? We researched that. How do they make a decision about who they support, and who makes the decision about where they give the gift? And all of those kinds of things are things we've researched. And one of the things we researched recently was artificial intelligence. And that came out of a conversation with my own staff where they were kind of dubious. What do we do with this artificial intelligence? Do we use it? Do we not use it? If we use it, how do we use it? And so we had a robust conversation. And out of that, we, of course, created our own artificial intelligence policy for how we use it as an agency. It's a research tool for us. It's a drafting tool for us, but it's not a final document tool ever. And so we have certain parameters that we use it. But we thought, let's find out what evangelicals are thinking about artificial intelligence. It's pervasive. We're seeing it more and more, and you're going to see it more and more as it filters into the marketplace in a pervasive manner. And when we took the survey, only about 20% of the people we surveyed knew very much about artificial intelligence. Most people knew a little bit or had heard a little bit, didn't feel like they were well informed, but about 20% had strong, actually 22% had strong opinions about AI and how it was used. And about 25% of the people generally felt AI was positive. About 28% felt it was neutral, but 38% had a negative view of AI and weren't quite sure whether they were for it or not. And about 9% didn't have enough information to give an opinion. So, but it began to take us down a road to learn a little bit more about AI, how it's used, and what evangelicals feel about it.
Yeah. And what's interesting, at least what I found, is the people who have that negative view of it, or lens, if you will, that are, coming up on your data. What we've found is that they just haven't tried it. They haven't, they haven't been exposed to it enough, or they've only heard the negative that's happening. It's going to take away, like in the coaching, it's going to take away, your job as a coach, and all these different things. But I think the more that people step in and start using it, it can be very effective. And I love that, you said it's not a final, you use it as a draft.
Yes.
Never for, the final piece that you're putting out. And I love that, because that aligns with how we are as well.
Yeah. And it's artificial intelligence is not sentient. Let's start there. It doesn't have its own thoughts. It's a collection of data that can be rapidly accessed. A large language model is what they call it. And it has amazing data that it can pull together very quickly for research purposes. It's very good for that. But it doesn't think on its own, but it is very much driven by the prompts and the requests that you put into it. And so what we found is the more that people use it, the more comfortable they become with it. The more people know about it, the more positively they feel about it. And I think we're going to find with AI that it's going to go the way of some other technologies that have evolved over the years. When radio was the rage and television came out, everybody thought television was going to take away radio and radio was going to fade into non-existence. But it didn't. It just created a new audience with a new set of skills, a new venue for viewership, and it opened up new jobs that hadn't existed before. When computers came out, again, people were not so sure about that. I mean, what do we need computers in our homes for? Well, now we have multiple computers in almost every home, and it's become a way of life. Now, it hasn't taken us away from, and it just expands our view, and that's what I think is happening with artificial intelligence. It may eliminate certain kinds of work, but it opens up completely new categories of opportunity. And I think the net outcome of that is a gain and an improvement, I think, in the quality. I recently met with a bunch of publishers, Christian publishers, and we were talking about using artificial intelligence and how they might use it. And so they are using it for proofreading texts, at least first draft proofreading. Always have a final person go over it at the end, but first draft proofreading, it's much speedier, much quicker. They use it even for drafting some documents. They'll oftentimes write a letter and run it through AI and see if they can improve upon it and use that. But it's always not used for final. There's always a final human touch.
Yes.
And we need to do that because it is a collection of data, and data is only as good as the source data. And frankly, we don't always know where the source data is coming from, and it may or may not be correct. And we've certainly found what appears to be making up facts, but it's actually pulling facts from unreliable sources. And so you always have to fact check. You have to make sure that what you're producing is accurate. And then it's always good to kind of give it that human walk through and redo it with a human touch. So it's a real human document, but it provides so much insight and resource. I think you and I were talking the other day, and I talked about that someone was going on a trip overseas there, and I wanted to help them because they had never done that before. So I went online and I asked them. In fact, they were going to Israel, and I said, someone's going to Israel on a 2-week trip. This is the time of the year. What do they need to pack? It created a packing list for us. I made 1 or 2 changes and sent it off, and it was ready to go. I oftentimes we'll use that for helping draft press releases. We don't use it for the final, but we can put the bullet points in. It gives us kind of a format, highlights the best parts, and then we can draft around that outline. I've even in the process of using it for writing outlines for books, not writing the book, but here's a bunch of data. If we're going to write a book about this, how would we outline it? It can draft an outline for us. That becomes then the framework you use to actually write the contents of the book. So it becomes a very interesting tool that can be used. And, I think most evangelicals, at least, feel that immediately it's a positive thing for medicine. It's a positive thing for better productivity and better efficiency. So that's kind of a no-brainer. Everybody kind of sees that's immediately a benefit. The pivot point is sort of what's going to happen with jobs. That's why I say I think maybe some jobs might be eliminated, but there's going to be new jobs created that I think are going to be greater and higher paying and more opportunity. But then where they're split. Here's where the evangelicals are split. Public safety. Now, if you think about auto driving cars, that's artificial intelligence.
Right.
Well, how do people feel about that? Some people say, hey, I'm looking forward to that day. I don't have to drive. Other people are saying, I'm never going to get in a car that doesn't have a driver. So they're divided about that. What about the economy? Well, how is AI going to impact our economic picture, our own creativity? As humans, are we going to get lazy depending on AI to do the creativity for us? And their ability to study and comprehend, and how is it going to impact our faith overall? So those are some of the questions that still need to be wrestled with. And truthfully, there are those who are actively, working at that. There are several companies that are exploring biblically based AI models, as opposed to the generically based AI models that are out in the public now. I think this is all fascinating and absolutely fabulous, as long as we keep technology where technology belongs, as a tool in our toolbox and not a replacement for our values and our own thoughts and creativity.
Right, because God created us with brains and
Mm-hmm.
minds and that creativity. So we
Mm-hmm.
don't ever want to, lose that. But I do believe that, I think about somebody who thinks that they aren't creative, but maybe they're popping something in and then that's prompting them for something more, how to add to it. And that can be a creative piece for a person who thinks that, well, I can't do this. I need to rely on whatever, the chat GPTs or word heroes or whatever it is that they're using. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I think it's fascinating. But you said something there about biblically based AI
Mm.
models. What can you say about that?
Well, every again, an AI is simply a large language model. It's what you feed into it. So they fed a lot of data. So if you take the public uh, airwaves, the public web, and you feed data from the public web into a model, it's not necessarily going to be biased toward a Christian worldview or a biblical worldview. And so, in fact, we've seen that we're in the process of creating a new website that will be released in January called Quotes for Life, and this is going to have hundreds of thousands of quotes. And we've used AI to help us cultivate um, additional information. So you might have a quote, and then we'll have a paraphrase of that quote. It will have a poem that relates to the quote. It's going to have scripture references that tie to that quote, an outline for a Bible study, and questions to use, and how you can use that quote in a presentation. So it's all this data that AI helped us create. Well, as we were doing that, and curating it, because again, we just use it for research, but we don't use it for final. So as we're curating, we're saying, oh, wait a minute, this particular worldview, their interpretation of this quote is not consistent with our biblical worldview. It's very humanistic, or it's very liberal in its viewpoint, much outside of biblical context. And so we've had to be careful of that. And there are a couple of companies now that are doing models where they are actually feeding in either biblical content, or they're feeding in doctrinal content. There's one that I know of that's particularly a specific denomination that they're putting in their denominational content to see what the outputs do. And in fact, they're finding when they do that, of course, the output then is flavored by that resource. And so they're finding much more biblically accurate models. And there's other companies that are doing similar kinds of things. So I think in the years to come, maybe even months to come, we're going to see more happening on biblically based AI models that would be even more robust and more helpful for those in the evangelical or Christian space.
Yeah. Wow. What were you surprised about in your research here on AI? Is there anything
I was
just was
yeah
like,
I was surprised that I guess I'm farther down the road. I was surprised so many people, 80% of evangelicals said they don't know very much about it.
mhm,
And I guess that was surprising for me because I'm in the space, and
yeah,
I've been in it for a couple of years, and it's something that I'm aware of and using, and all of that. So that was kind of a surprise. Um, but then when I talked to some professionals in the space, like the publishers, I was
mhm,
surprised to see how many of them were already embracing it.
yeah,
So it is being embraced. It is growing. I think there's 69% of the evangelicals we surveyed said that they are concerned about what AI could do. And there is a danger with AI. And I think that's something we also need to mention here. It's a great tool, great opportunity, great positive outcomes. There's also dangers because AI can also create deep fakes, videos and photos, and can be
mhm,
used to imitate other people and so forth. So there are some dangers, to it. In fact, 70% of the evangelicals feel like there are some potential dangers and some spots we need to be careful of. And I think that's worthy of noting. I don't know that surprised me, but it was worthy of noting. I think my greatest surprise was just as pervasive as it is, how little we know about it. It's all around us, but yet we don't know that much. And I think it's important that we begin to learn and understand the model, understand what it does and what it doesn't do, how it works, how it doesn't work, just so that we can make a choice then. Some people may choose, I don't ever want to use AI. I want to stay out of the AI space. And that's a fair choice. Others may say, I want to use it for limited purposes. That's also a fair choice. Some people say, I want to go, deep end of the pool, and I really want to use AI for a lot of things, and that's also a fair choice. But as long as you do that, understanding the nature of the tool, its positives, its benefits, its limitations, and its dangers.
Yes.
So that's sort of what I came away with, and I do think it has even impact for the church. Churches can begin to use some AI tools to, I think, improve some of their communication and strategies as well. So,
what might that look like?
There would be some ways that churches could use to provide additional resources. AI can help generate additional resources that are very clearly targeted, that for specific audiences that can. I remember. Let me backstep on this just a little bit. I remember a few years ago, about 10 years ago now, we started working with what was then Cancer Treatment Centers of America, and they're now City of Hope. Cancer Treatment Centers of America wanted to start an outreach to the Christian community, and so they engaged us to help them do that. And I did a survey back then. I surveyed about 100 pastors and asked them several different questions. And one of them I asked was, what are the things you counsel people about? And when it comes to health, and cancer was the number one response. And some of the other things they counsel people about, I said the three things were money, relationships, and sickness were the three broad categories. And so I asked them, so when you're counseling people about finances, do you have resources? And they said, oh yeah, lots of resources out there for that. When you're counseling people about relationships, do you have resources? They said, oh yeah, lots of resources. So when you're counseling people about cancer, do you have resources? And they said, there's not a thing out there. And that was a need that we stepped into 10 years ago to try to meet that need. But today it would be a different model, because now you can say, I'm facing this and I'm dealing with my faith. You can put those as a church. You could put some of that information into a query, and you could generate actually a resource that could be helpful to cancer patients or their caregivers, that was generated with research that would have taken you weeks to produce normally, can be generated in just a few minutes. It's really quite fascinating what can be done there. And so I think it broadens the scope of resources that a church can offer. I do think there are ways that it can increase personalization. People may like or not like that, but AI can sometimes recognize people and their behaviors and then interact with them in different ways based on that. So it can increase personalization for church ministries. So there's a number of different ways it can be used. We'll see where it evolves.
Yeah, and how many people are actually open to that? Because I think that the part of that, what you said in the beginning about the 38% negatively look at AI, really how open is somebody to the opportunities that it provides? And I think if you have such a stronghold or in a mindset where we're going to continue to do things how we've always done them and not are open to them, I think that could be why they won't use it. However, I think that people have the expectation moving forward now that everybody can have it. You don't even have to pay for it. You just have to have a connection. That I think that the tides are going to be turning. More people are going to be able to have their hands on it and be able to utilize it.
Yeah.
So I think that number is going to go up.
Oh, I think so too. And I think, it's going to take just time and experience for people to determine where all can we use this resource, and where should we not use this resource. I'm sure there will be again, the good and bad side to both of this. But like every tool, every tool can be used for good. It can be used for bad. And I think the opportunities that AI provides, when managed properly, when used within appropriate constraints and guidelines, I think the upside of that is fabulous and really has a lot of potential for business people, especially. I think there's some really amazing opportunities that can be followed and used in the AI space.
Yes. Well, Mark, this has been a fantastic conversation. I appreciate you bringing your research and what you're doing at Infinity Concepts. I would love for people to be able to point it to you. So where can people find you and the research? If it's different, if it's two different places, or you tell us.
Well, infinityconcepts.com is our website. So everything is on infinityconcepts.com. If you go to /resources, I believe that's the correct link to get to the reports. If you click on /resources, you'll see there's a list of several different resources, and research is one of the drop downs. Click on that, and there's probably 20 different research reports there that are available for free. That people can download absolutely for free. Yeah, this is free research that we provide. We do the research to serve our clients better, and then we release that research for others to glean from. So it's there, it's available. Our latest report is what do evangelicals believe about sin, and what is sin and what is not sin in the evangelical mindset. So it's fascinating. That would be another very interesting conversation.
Well, thanks again. I'd love to give you just one last word. What do you want to leave the audience with? It could be about your organization, about artificial intelligence, anything you want to say. I'm going to give you the last word before I wave goodbye.
Sure. I started Infinity Concepts because back in the early 2000s, I was concerned about poor communication in the Christian space. That so many organizations, so many businesses were communicating so poorly about the calling God had placed on their life. And they were using the tools that were in the marketplace so poorly. I felt like I wanted to make a difference. We wanted to become strategic partners with organizations so that we could help them express their brand clearly, correctly, concisely, and then use every tool available to leverage that brand and optimize its impact. So whether it's a humanitarian aid ministry, whether it's a church, whether it's a broadcast ministry, whether it's, as I said, even a corporation that wants to reach the Christian community for whatever focus they might have, we believe we that's an important thing to do, and that messaging needs to be first class. It needs to be clear. It needs to be concise. It needs to be memorable.
Well, there you have it, folks. Mark Dreistadt from Infinity Concepts. Check them out. And Mark, until next time, you keep doing great things, and we'll see you soon.
Okay, thank you.